Coming out of high school, Harry Giles was a #1 ranked prospect. He was ranked higher than guys like Jason Tatum, Lonzo Ball, De'Aaron Fox, and more. The level of talent that Harry had coming out of high school was seen as generational. And although he wasn't drafted with a top 10 overall selection mostly due to injuries, there was still a ton of excitement around his name. But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports. I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Harry Giles was drafted with the number 20 overall selection in the 2017 NBA draft. And the reason that Harry didn't go as a top 10 selection wasn't necessarily due to lack of talent, but was more so due to the fact that he did suffer a major injury in college, while also in the brief stint that he did play at Duke, he didn't necessarily put up the best numbers. But the fact that he still did go in the first round kind of shows volumes of how talented teams thought he actually was. And the reason why teams thought he was so talented was based upon how well he was playing in high school. And that's not necessarily something you hear all that often, that a player gets drafted due to how well they played in high school and not really how well they played in college. But in my opinion, the fact that that was the case kind of just shows how good he was. And in Harry's rookie season, he basically didn't play whatsoever, and that was mostly due to the fact that he was injured, but it was also partially due to the fact that the Sacramento Kings wanted him to feel comfortable at the NBA level and wanted him to feel comfortable on his injured knee. And a lot of times when a rookie doesn't play in the rookie season, maybe due to injuries or maybe due to another reason, that player typically gains great experience because now they're able to see what the NBA life is like without actually being thrown into the fire by, of course, going to all the games. They could also now learn from their teammates in terms of work ethic, what they eat, just general tips about the NBA from their teammates, especially if they have all-star or superstar type guys on the roster. That would help them tremendously. And overall, it's just a great experience for them without being thrown into the fire. And a lot of players that don't end up playing in the rookie season talk about that experience and talk about how important that experience was for them to succeed later on into their careers. So although Harry didn't play in his rookie season, of course most people weren't nervous whatsoever. And people and the Sacramento Kings already knew of Harry's injuries going into the draft. That was the reason why he fell down so low. Because talent-wise, he was certainly a top 10 selection, maybe even a top 5. And in Harry's second season, that's where he really started to find some minutes, averaging 7 points per game on 50% shooting from the field, 3.8 rebounds, and 1.5 assists on 14 minutes per game as well. And although those numbers weren't necessarily anything special, Harry was showing certain flashes in his second season. And also there wasn't all that much pressure on Harry due to the fact that he wasn't a top 10 overall selection, on top of the fact that he was coming off major injuries and the Sacramento Kings were being very patient with him. But in Harry's second season with the Kings, he basically put up the same statistics, averaging 7 points per game on 55% shooting from the field, 4.1 rebounds, and 1.3 assists on, once again, 14 minutes per game. And although he was showing certain flashes, the Kings proved that they weren't all that patient with Harry and ended up moving on from him after that 2019 season. And at the time, Harry was seen as a guy with all the talent in the world, but at the same time wasn't necessarily showing it once playing on the court. And there were certain concerns about Harry if he would ever live up to those expectations that he had coming out of high school as a #1 ranked prospect. But after that 2019 season with the Sacramento Kings, Giles moved on to the Portland Trail Blazers, where he only played 38 games, averaging 2.8 points per game on 43% shooting from the field, 3.5 rebounds, and 0.8 assists. Now his role with the Blazers was just a guy who came off the bench in blowouts and didn't necessarily play all that much, obviously. And at that point, all the expectations and excitement that certain people had about Harry coming out of high school were really starting to fade, as Harry was proving the inability to play at the same level that he was in high school in the NBA, which is of course obvious, but the real concerning part about Harry in the NBA was he just wasn't improving all that much. And Harry did play some G League games in between and even after his Blazers stint, but at this point Harry hasn't played in the NBA since that Blazers run. And unfortunately, this is something that you tend to see a lot with extremely talented players in high school or even at the college level, where they're able to get by just based off talent alone at those levels, but once they make it to the NBA, NBA, obviously the talent level is much higher, and now they can't necessarily get by on just talent alone, and they would actually need to work hard on their game and improve certain aspects of their game, and they just don't have the work ethic to actually do that, and then they kind of fall off and don't live up to the expectations that they were expected to originally, and in some cases they just fall out of the NBA entirely. And in my opinion, a perfect example of this is a guy in Dennis Smith Jr. who, similar to Harry Giles, had all the talent in the world at the high school level and at the college level, but once he made it to the NBA, he certainly did have some success early on, but he didn't necessarily have the best work ethic and didn't necessarily improve certain aspects of his game, and eventually he got to the point where he's at now, where he's very close to being out of the league. Now, another factor that makes both of their cases very similar is both of these guys lost a ton of confidence after they weren't playing all that well at the NBA level. Now, Dennis Smith completely lost all his confidence, but Harry certainly lost a lot of his confidence as well, and it makes sense, of course. When you have all the talent in the world and you're at the top of the world in high school and college, you just have so much talent that you don't even necessarily need to work all that hard. Obviously, you're going to have a ton of confidence in your game, and once you get to the NBA and you see that that talent level that you thought was at the top wasn't necessarily all that great compared to other NBA players, then of course naturally you're going to start to lose some confidence, and that of course leads you down a bad path. Now, even though Harry Giles hasn't played in the NBA in a little bit of time at this point, I still do think he could definitely make it back to the NBA, just based upon the level of talent that he does have. But if Harry is serious about extending his NBA career, he's going to need to do a few different things. The first and most obvious is work on his work ethic. And what I mean by that is, obviously Harry has worked in the gym a ton ever since he got to the NBA, and maybe even a little bit before as well. But what I mean by that is work with the right trainers and really focus on what you're doing. There's a ton of times that players work on basically everything in order to be a very well-rounded player, which is great, but at the NBA level, it doesn't necessarily work out. So what I think Harry should do is work on one individual aspect of his game in order to perfect that aspect, and then move on to another aspect of his game. A player that did this perfectly is Kawhi Leonard, because when Kawhi originally got drafted into the NBA, he wasn't known as an offensive player. He was just known as a phenomenal defender, but each and every season, he worked on a specific aspect of his offensive game, and eventually he got to the point where he's at today. Now, obviously, I don't think Harry Giles is anywhere near the level of talent that Kawhi is, but I'm just saying, in order for him to become a decent level NBA player, or maybe even a little bit better than that, I really think he needs to focus on a specific aspect of his game in one summer, and then focus on another the summer after, once he actually perfects certain aspects of his game. And if he's able to do that successfully, I certainly do still think there's a place for Harry Giles in the NBA. But I guess only time will tell what happens with the rest of Harry Giles' career. And that's basically the story of Harry Giles' career thus far. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Harry Giles will get another opportunity in the NBA someday, or do you not think so? But anyways, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.